Scream 1, released in 1996, was a parody movie of the more superior cinematic masterpiece that is Scary Movie.
Hey Stan, got your ice pack for your hand.
Ow!
Sorry.
But I guess Scream 1 was good enough to garner a few sequels. 6 of them, to be exact. And with the 6th Scream movie hitting theaters this last week, I took it upon myself to go watch it and tell you, my little Glendo goobers, how it is. So sit back and relax, and it's time to review Scream IV, also known as Scream 6. Or is it VI? No, I don't know. Whatever the Roman numeral for 6 is, that's the one we're watching. Now, the Scream movies have always been very meta. It knows it's in a scary movie. In the first original Scream movie, they had to figure out the rules for surviving a horror movie. And then in the sequel, the rules for surviving a horror sequel. Now, at this point, it is the rules for surviving in a horror franchise. And the movie actually kind of pokes fun at, how Hollywood and these studios, once they have a big hit, they're just, okay, how can we make this a franchise? They talk about, now that it's a franchise, the legacy characters are off limits. Look at Tony Stark, he died in this one, which means that any of us can die now. So yeah, I always liked the meta commentary on the horror and just film as film in general that these movies do, and this one did it pretty good. It didn't focus a whole lot on it, but it made me smile. Now, with this being how to survive in a horror franchise, obviously there's a lot of, homages and Easter eggs and kind of little clues around all about the previous Scream movies. I truly think this is kind of a love letter to the Scream franchise as a whole. There are so many just little pieces throughout this movie that's just oh, that's from Scream 4, and oh, this thing they're talking about is from Scream 3. And as a fan of the franchise, it was nice seeing those little bits and pieces.
Whoa, whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come.
Speaking of things returning, there are some legacy characters that return. One of them being Courtney Cox's Gale Weathers, which obviously everyone knew about. And then there was another one that, I didn't see her in any of the trailers, so I'm not going to say who that person is. I was just very surprised to see her show up in this movie. I was just watching it, and when she came on screen, I was like, what? Why is she here? Another legacy character who people might expect to be in it, Sidney Prescott, the main character of basically the entire Scream franchise, was not in this one. I guess Neve Campbell had some contract disputes, so she was not in this. And surprisingly, I thought that it wasn't going to work without her. It worked fine without her. We didn't need Sidney. Honestly, we didn't need Gale. Gale Weathers, Courtney Cox's character, didn't really do a whole lot. The movie would have been just as fine without Gale in it, but I don't know, that might be a little bit of a hot take, but that's just my opinion.
That's my opinion!
So the movie follows the 4 surviving teen kids, young adults, I guess, from from Scream 5, that being Tara, Sam, Chad, and Mindy. They're also introduced to a couple other new characters, and this one, it takes place in college. And so one thing that I just thought was kind of interesting, and the movie talked about a little bit, was so the last Scream 5, was kind of like a soft remake, kind of reboot of Scream 1. Even the final I can't talk. The final climax of the movie taking place in Stu's old house, which is where the original Scream, where the climax, that one happened. Now in Scream 2, Sidney and the gang go off to college, and there's a ghost face that follows her to college and is trying to kill her. Now in this one, the gang goes to college, and there's a ghost face trying to kill her. Surprising, I know. Just kind of something I thought was a little interesting. It's so maybe in the next Scream movie, maybe the killer will be one a sibling who is a movie producer. That's what happened in Scream 3. It's just a little, man, I don't know what I'm talking about. So out of all the characters, Chad was my favorite. Chad is built different. He's the GOAT. He's a cool guy. I like Chad, but I think that the main kind of the main characters really are Tara and her sister Sam. they're the main focus. You know, there's a strong like emotional connection between the two of them, and that's what really drives this, you know, movie. The rest of the people are just kind of side characters, but yeah, Chad's the coolest one. It introduces some new characters, and I feel like they should have probably gotten more screen time. We didn't really get to know the characters that well, but you know, maybe we'll get to see more of them in the next Scream movie. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about before I get into spoiler territory is this is probably the most gruesome Scream movie I've seen. There was some brutal stuff. Just a lot of very kind of like hard to watch, like ooh, ewy, you know, gross stuff. There's a scene where like I think somebody gets like stabbed through like the eye and like it gets ripped out. It's very icky.
And what you just did was stick a knife in our back and kill us.
So at this point, I am going to be getting into kind of some spoiler stuff. So, you know, if you don't want it spoiled, you're going to skip to this timestamp. I'm throwing it up on the screen right now. Okay, so that was your warning. So let's go in 3, in 2, in 1.
I know, you see, somehow the world will change for me.
Okay, now I'm going to start talking about spoilers right now. Like I said earlier, Chad was my favorite character. But dog, he should have been dead. Dude, he got stabbed like a million times and then just, oh, he survived. And that kind of leads me to like probably my biggest complaint is that all the people who should have died just kind of survived. So like, Chad, his sister Mindy, and Courtney Cox's Gale Weathers, they all should have been dead. They got stabbed and messed up, and then it was just kind of at the end they were like, oh, they survived, and it's like, okay. And so let's think about the people who did die in this movie. Okay, so there is Annika, who is Mindy's girlfriend, who was introduced in this movie. There was the 3 killers, who were all introduced in this movie, and then there was those 3 people at the beginning for like the opening kill, who were introduced in this movie. Are you noticing a trend? Because I did. It felt like they probably should have killed off some like characters that we already knew, because it felt like the deaths that we got and stuff like that were kind of meaningless, you know. Let's take Scream 2 for example. Randy was my favorite character and he died, and it added emotional weight to the story, you know. Scream 2 is one of my favorite movies, and my boy Randy, he died. So maybe, I don't know, I was happy that Chad survived because Chad's the GOAT, he's the coolest guy, but also it's like, it's just kind of unrealistic that he survived, you know. It's like, kill him off or don't tease my emotions. And also, I can't remember her name, Gabby, or let me look at my notes real quick. Kirby should have died too. She got like stabbed and shot and stuff like that. Another legacy character, and then she just survives at the end. I'm like, seriously? And then you take Mindy for example. Mindy got like stabbed, gutted on the subway. This did not make sense. So Mindy gets stabbed and gutted, and the nerdy dorky kid pulls her off the subway and gets her help. But then it's revealed that he's a killer, so it's like, well then why did he help her? Why didn't he just make sure she died? It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And then Mindy at the end, after the whole climax stuff like that, then she comes running up and she's like, oh, he's the killer. And it's like, okay, 1, how did you know that he saved your life? And 2, why aren't you at the hospital? You got like stabbed and then they went like up through your tummy. You should be dead. Doesn't make sense. I don't know. Just kind of a little pet peeve, if you will. And then I know I already talked about this. I just don't understand really what Gale Weathers did for the story. I understand that she found the warehouse that had all the cool stuff in it, but it's also like, you could have just had the FBI or just the cop do it, you know. They even said, like, the cop guy was even like, oh yeah, Gale Weathers found it. I thought someone else was going to. Didn't really make a lot of sense, but, you know, it's Courtney Cox. She's a veteran of this series, so I guess they gotta weave her way into the story somehow. Last spoiler thing, I guess. I was not expecting there to be 3 killers. I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, it was unexpected. I was able to guess. I was like, yeah, the cop is the killer. I figured that one out. I suspected that I think the kid's name was Ethan. Whoever the nerdy kid was, I expected him to be a killer. I was shocked that the other girl killer, I'm not good with their names.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
So, in conclusion, I surprisingly really liked Scream 6. The action was good, the characters were pretty cool. One of my big pet peeves from the last one was I thought that the killer's motivation in the last one was really stupid, and the motivation in this one is significantly better. Like, it's understandable. The last one was stupid. But I really liked it, and if you're a fan of the Scream franchise, I think you will really enjoy this one. There's a lot of callbacks and little Easter eggs to the previous ones. I think I said earlier, this is like a love letter to the Scream franchise. So if you're a fan of it, go check this one out. I really think it's safe to say you're going to like it. I have a friend, Christian, who he has only ever seen the first Scream, and he wasn't paying too much attention to it, but he went out and saw this one, and he even loved it. He said he didn't really understand a lot of like the references and callbacks, but even though he thought this was a very well made movie and was a very good one. So I guess I'm giving this one, let's say 8.1 Glendos out of 10. Go check it out. Okay, bye.